start at least with our notes and housekeeping.
Okay, all right. Sure, and anybody who's joining us a little bit later can catch up with the recording. So I'd like to welcome everybody. We are going to take care of just a little bit of housekeeping. As Jude had mentioned earlier, please mute yourselves. We are going to be asking you to, because we're a nice, small, cozy group, we're going to be taking question and answers live. We will be pausing throughout the presentation for questions and answers. So we will be asking you to unmute yourselves. We would like to address the, as I call it, the elephant in the room. Many times with free webinars, people are concerned, is there a big sales pitch at the end of this presentation? And I'm happy to say that there's not a big sales pitch. Do we have other courses and other things that we'd like to make you available of? Yes, absolutely. Of course, we would like to share with you how you can continue your learning experience with us, but there's not any big countdown, any big, you must sign up in the next 30 minutes, nothing like that, nothing at all. So relax, there's no big push. We'll simply mention what's available after the webinar to continue your learning with us. And as we've been mentioning a couple of times, we are recording this session. The link will be sent to you within the next 48 hours. And so I'd like to mention that if for some reason you may be concerned about having your face recorded, then go ahead, please just stop your video. All right, let's go ahead and get started.
Just 1 second, Linda, before
yes.
you get started, just one little thing. We are hosted today on a platform made by Biz Make Biz. It's a networking organization that during COVID offered this wonderful platform that evolved now into Biz Life. It offers hundreds of free content. Basically, it's free, even with maybe a small payment later, but just keep on looking and just check the Biz Life website. They offer a lot of content. So that's it, Linda. Now please take it on.
No, thank you. And thank you to Biz Life for offering us the platform today.
Yes.
So you may not know me, my name's Linda Gross, and I'm the co-founder of a company called Impact Communications, which is based here in British Columbia, Canada. I specialize in designing and teaching presentations to professionals so that they can deliver a message that makes a stronger impact. This is an international collaboration between myself and Jude. So I'm going to turn it over to Jude to introduce herself to those of you who may not be familiar with her.
So again, good evening. Yes, I'm Jude, and I have a company, Excel Leader. I'm a presentation expert. I work now quite closely with Linda, and my main business is business presentation, investor pitch decks. Just, you'll be able to see at the end how to get in touch with me, with Linda. Without further ado, let's go on, Linda.
Okay, great, thanks. So our session today is designed for people who work with large volumes of data, numbers, tables, charts, etc., which we've discovered over the years is not a challenge when you're presenting to your other data people or people in your environment that are comfortable with data. The challenge or the problem occurs when you need to present to people outside of your area, to those non-data people, or as we call them, non-number people. How do you make sure that they understand all of your points, how that they can see and appreciate the importance of what you are showing them? So we've designed our webinar today into two different sections. The first section is what we believe every single presentation in the world needs to consider, which is a clear goal for the presentation, the audience assessment, the level of interest, and the structure to assist retention and recall. And we call this the strategy that will help you craft a well-designed presentation. So that's the first part, and I'm going to talk on that for a little bit. The second part of our presentation, of our webinar today, is creating the visual story. And this visual story is, how do you use a story and storytelling methods with data? Maybe, Jude, should we take a moment to invite people to mute their mics?
Yes, I'll try to, I will also mute.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, somebody has their mic open?
Yes, I've muted. That's fine.
Okay, great. Thank you. So no problem. So again, we want to be able to focus on the level of visuals that can be used when showing the data. And we're also going to talk about a very important aspect, which is controlling the flow of information by using animation. Let me show you how we work with this. So as I mentioned, the first part that every presentation needs to consider, this is the first question that every client conversation of ours starts with, is what do you want your people to do following your presentation? Are they learning a new technique? Do they need to change a direction? Do they need to buy something, avoid something? What do you actually want them to do? What do you want them to accomplish? This is the first question we go through with every client. Then the next essential question is, who are you presenting to? Who is in your audience? What's their prior knowledge? Are they familiar with the subject? What are the demographics? Are they older, younger? Are they as familiar with your terminology or jargon? Do you need to be careful with that? Translate it perhaps. Do you see that before we even touch PowerPoint, we first have to consider our audience and be considerate of them? Once we have a good sense of who is going to be in the audience or who we are presenting to, the third essential question that we want to consider is, what's their level of interest? Why are they here? Did they want to attend? Are they resistant at all to our message? Are they the ones that are going to give you the thumbs up or the go or the no-go? So again, a key consideration is, are these data people or are they non-data people, and they may perhaps become a bit unsettled by too much data coming at them too quickly? Another consideration, another main consideration in your strategy of how you're planning your presentation is, what do you want them, the audience, to remember? Research has shown us that people tend to remember about 10% of any given presentation, maybe 20 if they're really interested in the subject. The problem with that is, however, that it will be a random 10 to 20% unless we take control and direct the audience to what we want them to remember. Now, I'd like to mention and point out that a lot of the information that Jude and I share and present to our clients is based on neuroscience. And science is able to tell us that how people learn, why they make the decisions they do, and how the brain actually works to build memories. And we use that evidence-based science to shape our recommendations and the options that we're going to present to you today for better and stronger communication. Let's take a look at how we could create a more effective presentation. What this diagram shows is that a presentation, a well-crafted presentation, consists of three distinct parts. Part one being the message, which requires a strategy to be effective. It's not just a stream of consciousness where somebody sits down and starts thinking, oh, I need to tell them this, I need to tell them that. Oh yeah, I better remember that. No, there's actually a strategy and a plan beforehand. Part two is the visual design. So that the design is not just decoration. That's what supports, reinforces, and creates connection. The third part of your presentation is the delivery. We know beforehand how that's going to be delivered, and we're going to show you how that can impact your presentation. Let's talk about this in a little bit more detail. The first part of your message, as we mentioned, requires this strategy. We've already talked briefly about this, how you define the overriding goal. Then you need to discover the audience's interests and potential trigger points as well. And you need to prepare the presentation in a way, controlling the flow, etc., so that they remember your key points. We're going to take a look in just a moment about how stories and storytelling can help you when presenting data. The second part of crafting this well-created presentation is this visual design that we're focusing on today. This is the focus where we're talking about design as it truly functions. Design is not about making something pretty. Design addresses how something functions. If a bridge is well designed, it supports the traffic that has to go across it. If a chair is well designed, it supports a body, hopefully comfortably, sitting in it. So we're going to take a look at how design affects creating the message of your presentation. And as I mentioned, we also have to take into consideration, how are we going to deliver this? Is it going to be delivered on stage or in a live webinar such as this, where you're talking and engaging with the audience? Or is it going to be simply a report that's put into an email and sent off to people? Or perhaps it's a recorded presentation that is then delivered to other people to self-play. Many different options. Let's take a look at one of the biggest buzzwords that's going on around presentations these days, which is storytelling. We could probably spend the entire session, Jude, isn't that right? Just talking about storytelling?
More than one session.
No kidding. It's a very powerful technique. And again, it's a neuroscience that shows us that we are hardwired to accept stories, and we'll be able to share more on that. But consider very simplistically, if somebody tries to tell you, trust me, the automatic reaction for most human beings is to actually step back a bit and go, why? You're telling me to do something, why? Whereas if instead of telling people to trust you, you would be able to tell them a story that showed where you demonstrated trustworthy actions. Now people are able to come to the conclusion themselves. They're not being told what to do. They're able to form their own opinion, and more than likely, they're going to be inclined to trust you. Let me show you how we used storytelling with a young, successful financial planner at the beginning, at the beginning of this year. He was a client of mine, and his goal was to build his business, expand a business. He had a chance to present before a new audience at a dental conference. He wanted to interest them in his investments that support sustainability. But poor Jason had the bad luck to be booked at the end of a 5-day conference. And not only on the last day, but he also was the very last presenter. He was so depressed. He was saying to me, how are we going to get their attention? How are we going to get them to care? I said, well, let's take a look at this. We have actually a couple of methods, 2 very surefire ways to break through people's apathy. The first way is we can shock them. And I'm speaking emotionally, not physically. We can tell them something shocking, give them a shocking statistic such as, did you know in North America, drowning kills more children between the ages of 1 and 4 than anything else other than birth defects? Now, if your message, if your presentation was about prevention, perhaps even safety and regulations and planning, now you've grabbed their attention. The other surefire method is to surprise them. have those eyebrows go up. Oh, again, you could give them a very surprising or shocking statistic, something like, did you know that 69% of children aged 2 to 5 can use a computer mouse, but a mere 11% can tie their shoelaces? You can see the importance of training in education, which is why it's the first item on our budget today. Now, with an introduction like that, you can see how you'd grab their attention. So in the case of our young financial planner, I chose to go with surprise. So we've asked his permission to show these slides from his presentation, and he's very pleased to share them. So I'm pulling out the slides. I've pulled out the slides from his actual deck. This is what he started with. After he introduced himself, he said, I'm sure you're expecting me to show you my credentials so you can see how qualified I am. Then he said, I'm sure you're also expecting me to show you tons of data so that you know how knowledgeable I am. And then I'm also sure that you're expecting me to show you loads of performance charts so that you can trust me. But he said, I'm not going to do any of that. Instead, I want to tell you a story. But even before I tell you a story, I have a question. Can anyone tell me how many cell phones there are in the room? Well, with that, people started looking around, guessing, counting, and we came up with a number. And when we had that number, then Jason said, okay, fine. Now, can anybody tell me how many cell phones there are in the world? Again, we had lots of guesses and lots of ideas. And he said, once we came up with a number, he said, so when people have a new cell phone, when a new version comes out, what do people do with all those cell phones, and worse, with all those plastic, lost, unused now cell phone cases? Then he began to educate the audience on the horrendous problems we are suffering with e-waste, and how most of North America ships their e-waste, their discarded computers, cell phones, all that electronic equipment to Asia and Africa, and how it's such a terrible problem that we have children now over there playing with dangerous materials, and the pollution in the waters and on the land is out of control. And then he asked the people, did they realize that in 2018, North America produced 50 million metric tons of e-waste, which is comparable to about 4,500 Eiffel Towers. And then he said, but I told you I was going to tell you a story, and it's a good news story. So then he carried on to say, he wanted to let them know about a company that is helping to fight against e-waste by making biodegradable phone cases from a recycled product, which creates sturdy, durable, and yet products that can go into the compost at the end of their life cycle. And that this story gets even better because for us, he was presenting in Canada, of course. This company is based right out of not only Canada, but in our province of BC. And he explained how this company, which has become very successful, was able to obtain their startup financing because as a green company, they qualified for what's called impact investing, which is investing in companies that are doing something to save our planet and make a better impact in all of our lives. And then he carried on with the remainder of his presentation on impact investing. Well, needless to say, with a start like that, not only did he get a lot of follow-up business out of this conference, but his presentation was actually voted one of the best presentations of the entire conference, which is very cool. So that's why he was very pleased to be able to share this and show you the power of how a story, and by using the element of surprise, he was able to connect and relate, have his audience relate to him. So storytelling is a very powerful and often misunderstood tool on how you can use it in business presentations. We spend a lot of time on that, and I know that we'll have additional sessions going into this in depth. So the focus of our webinar today, as I said, is how to handle data, but we also include with data portions of text. So it would be criminal for me to not take this opportunity to show the 3 biggest mistakes that we often see being made when using text in presentations. So let me quickly go through those, how people use too much text and sometimes what they can use to compensate or as alternatives. The ineffective use of visual, what are some of the most common mistakes, and overwhelming or unreadable text data. So this is a slide that I'm sure you've probably seen before, something similar to this. And Jude, we see this quite a bit, don't we?
Too many times. But then it's good we see them because this way we can do better, let's say.
Exactly, exactly. At least they're bringing it to us. Yes. and not leaving the audience to suffer with these. So the 2 biggest problems we see from this, both are supported by neuroscience. Brain science tells us that in this scenario, when you put something in front of people with text, people immediately, they're wired to immediately identify and start to read. We can't help it. It's a survival technique. So even now, as I'm talking, I'm sure some of you are reading this, and what's happened is you're not listening to me. So why would I even bother to try and explain something important with this much data on the screen? The second problem that often happens when there's this much data or this much information, this much text on the screen, is that the presenter themselves starts to read it. And we have a colleague in the field that does an annual survey that tells us the #1 most despised aspect of presentations is when people read their presentation out loud to the audience. And I know people tell me, but that's important information. Don't take it away from me. And I tell them, I'm not going to take it away from you. I'm going to take it off the slide and put it down below in your speaker notes. So you talk about it, you explain it, and we only have a few points to support and reinforce your message. Let me show you what this could look like. So visual, as I'm saying, is better, faster comprehension, easier to remember. That's a technique that we'd like you to start to consider. And also we'd like you to start to consider to use shapes to put your information in. Shapes can be squares, circles, or in this case, where I've used chevrons.
Linda, I'm sorry to cut in. Just let me tell our audience that everything we're going to show today is things that you don't need to be a designer to do. These are things that you can do it on your own. And we encourage people, if they don't take a designer or if they don't come to us, to at least consider using these methods because they can be done. We're going to show the simple things that anyone can do. Sorry, Linda.
No, that's perfect. Thanks, Jude. That's an excellent point because it's true. With just a few keystrokes in one of our short courses, we can show you how to do this, and it makes such a difference. We didn't want to create something elaborate and fancy that's perhaps beyond your capabilities. No, these are very, very easily done. Thanks, Jude, for putting that in. So in addition to using visuals, we want you to also consider putting your information in a different direction. Instead of always going from top to bottom of the page, maybe now consider a direction. And I realize that for us in North America, we tend to think of going from left to right. For yourselves, you may be wanting to think of going from right to left, whichever, but change the direction from up down to now going sideways. The beauty of this is that with your shapes, you can then attach smaller pieces of information. And again, what the whole idea of this is to reduce the overload on your audience. it can be overwhelming for people. So you're doing your audience a favor by breaking it into smaller chunks and understanding that that cognitive load and how people remember is very valuable. Now, we can actually take this one step further, and instead of having everything on the screen all at once, this is where we can start to use animation to help people understand our information, remember it, and that is by pacing. I can bring in one piece of information, I can discuss it, then have the subpoints come in. Rather than showing everything all at once, as I did on the last one, the PowerPoint animation tools really are useful in order to control that flow of information. So you can see how easy it would be to pause, take some question and answers, etc., and not overwhelm the audience by showing them everything all at once. Now, when we talk about images, this is a huge topic. And again, we could spend, we do have entire classes on this. Yeah. The point I would like you to remember is that images are not decoration. They're not something to fill in that white space that you have. They are used in order to create a feeling. So, for example, if you are raising money to support starving children, of course you are going to have pictures of those children to raise the emotions, to touch the feelings and the hearts of people, to encourage and persuade them to think in the direction that you want them to think. So in order to use images properly, you want to think of what's the feeling, what's the tone that you want people to experience, and then how it can support your message. So that also means that they're not necessarily literal. Just because we're talking about stopping perhaps a particular area of spending in a budget, we don't have to use a stop sign. We could use maybe something that's a little bit more in keeping with the rest of the message. So again, this is a huge topic. We have tons of information to share on this. Please stay tuned and we'll be happy to share that. But keep in mind that images are used to persuade and influence your audience. And it's not just images, actual pictures. We can start thinking in shapes as well in the form of icons. Again, for people that are working with a lot of data, we can use these icons and these different shapes to represent different data sets, so that now instead of having to use a lot of numbers to represent something, we're using icons, which can be your best friend. And together with animation, you can really control the flow and not overwhelm your audience. Now, Jude's going to go in now and take a look and spend the rest of the webinar with you talking about these numbers and how to use these different charts. But we wanted to just ask a very quick question. We're very curious about which is the most common way that you share your information with people around you. Do you do it through an Excel file? Do you send information in presentation files, PowerPoint, Keynote, etc.? Do you do printed reports such as Word, PDFs, or it doesn't really matter, it's data. What matter does it make? So we're very curious. If you could just use the chat box and let us know, and I'm going to stop sharing so that Jude can then begin. Take it away, Jude.
Okay, so now I will share my screen while you're letting us know. Thank you, Shmuel. Okay, so what we're going to talk about now is how to present data. And as I said before, we still really want to make sure that our data is a story. Let's see something that I am sure that many of us can see, you know, at least number of people, and I'll show this to you. people immediately understand what it's all about. It's sort of on a P&L. I see people now getting closer to the screen, obviously, but for now, non-numbers people, like we call them, just a turn off. They immediately, their mind is blown away somewhere else. So first of all, we can take a little bit of cosmetics, maybe just bring our eyes to the important data we want to share. Again, for non-numbers people, especially if they are the ones that need, they are the decision makers, they are the ones who need to give you a go or no go, not good enough. This is a report you can send, you can print, you can give out, you can send before or after, but on a slide, it's very bad. For non-data people, non-numbers people, this is so much better to show. These are some insights already. It's not just data. I will repeat this. If I wanted to take something out of this webinar on the data issue, is show insights, share insights. If you just want to give raw data, there are better tools to do it. It's exactly the same information as on that report, only arranged differently. This one, it's telling the story, it gives an insight, and it's something like, although operating costs grew, the growth in the income was good enough. So you can give some conclusion here, something that people will take away. Another example, and this one is not so overwhelming, some data. And this is again from a live thing I did. And it was something to do with travel, and you will understand when I'll show it in a different way, because this way it's just raw data, means nothing to us. First of all, we could try and give some context. At least now when you see the numbers, it's easier on the eye. Like we said, like Linda said before, we have science behind it. We have so much, we read so much research and we get so much research on it. And yes, this is now pure science. When you give context, when you give the numbers in small portion, it's so much easier to digest and to get. Now, another way to show exactly the same, and as I say this, now I'm going to tell you a story, a visual story, same numbers on the right. So we're going to talk about some detailed change in tourism in the numbers between the year 2006 and 2016. We had a survey and we realized that while in 2006, Asia Pacific had only, it was one number, which I don't have right now here, but in 2016, it grew, it went by 10% up, while the other classic sites went down. So this is a nice way to do it, but even a better way of showing the same thing is just with one click. Sorry, just let me go one back. Yeah. So, sorry, something just went wrong here. But again, we can see exactly what happened. Asia Pacific went up, Europe, North America went down. We don't need to even read the numbers. This is a story, this is a visual story. We understand the whole story that was presented before in just numbers. If I want to say again something, some do's and don'ts, this pie chart, I don't think there's anybody on earth that doesn't know, didn't see, doesn't realize what this is. But can you really understand what it's all about? Does it mean anything to you? Don't do that. There are better ways. I will show them you do soon. There are better ways how to do it. If there is something even worse than that, it's this chart. This is a chart that is considered to be very fancy. People love using it. Not just that we don't understand the data, it actually shows it's misleading. The data here is lying. Because if you will take a look for a moment at the blue, both blue portions, chairs with 8.2 and armchairs with 8.2 sales or whatever, the armchairs seem so much larger than the chairs, which means it's not true. Same if you will look at the brown portion with the orange. I'm sorry, with the yellow one, dressers and beds. Again, the dressers piece, it looks so much bigger than the bed. Please don't ever use it. Maybe it looks fancy, but it lies. This one is incorrect, totally. Ways to show same data, again, I always show the same data, is to take something which is easier on the eye. You have more explanations here. You give a context by using the image. Like Linda said before, this is not just something to do with the cosmetics, as something that we want to make nice, but it gives some context. If nobody knew what we were talking before, now we understand that it has something to do with furniture. Even better, and again, neuroscience. Sorry, we sound a little bit repetitive, but neuroscience showed that it's easier for us, for our brain, to grasp differences when we show them in bars, and we can see very easily what's bigger, what's smaller, what's the proportion, what's the relative, how relative one thing is to the other. So even if you think that maybe this one looks a bit less nice than the one before, this one is easier on people, both data and non-data people, especially for non-data. And again, it tells some sort of a story. If we're talking now about a bit of cosmetics, and again, not just cosmetics, but we want people to remember, we want people to take things away, and we want sometimes to get them engaged with us instead of just showing a pie chart. In this case, this pie chart is excellent. It's very clear. We can understand everything. We have a big title here that explains what we're looking at. We have some legend. And in this game, we asked subscribers, have you seen Game of Thrones? משחקי הכס. For those who don't remember, don't make the immediate connection. So these are the results, very clear. But if you want people to remember better, why not use something like this? Again, in this case, we wanted to say something. 73% of monthly subscribers have watched Game of Thrones. Another way, again, just do something that's a bit different. Show, tell, do the chart. This is a faux chart. Both charts I just showed are faux charts. There's no Excel behind it. There's no real data behind it. This is again one thing that we have in one of our classes. But when you put such a big label here on the side, that's the story. You don't need to do much more. This is what people will remember. This is what we want them to remember, that we are great because we have 45% of our board of directors are women. This is something that I'm not so sure if it actually exists, but it should, and it should be even more. Okay, so again, this is a very regular chart. We see them all the time. Store sales, that would be the title, and we have some things here and some numbers and repetitive numbers. We have the axes. So let's take this very simple chart. It's not telling anything, and let's try and bring some life into it. So now we're going to say, and again, I'm using animation as well, like Linda said before, we're walking people with us in a story, in a progress. We don't just put it over it, okay, whatever you want to remember or whatever you want to take away from it. We are in control. We pace the information, the stream of information. So we are talking about our items, and we have, these are the sales of our chairs, table, and stools. Our big winner of this quarter or this month or this week, the desk, they have been doing best. So maybe now we can even take we can do something with it. Maybe we'll go and say that, okay, so whoever buys a desk gets some discount on the tables because we want to make it a bit equal or even. We can show in other ways, again, because if we see a lot of charts that are the same, and if we want to put some emphasis, we want to implant something in the memory, we can show something different, exactly the same information, but it looks a little bit different. So people will remember it because it's not your typical chart. And this is a chart, it's an Excel chart. It's behind, I mean, there is Excel behind the PowerPoint here. And again, we teach how to do it, not very complicated. if it wasn't clear enough to how to tell a story, again, same charts, you know, we see them so much, people just got so used to it, some sort of a PBT and profits and numbers. When I see a chart like this, my first emotion is, you know, you have fight or flight. For me, it's flight. After that, I start fighting it. So again, with some animation and some storytelling, we can see some numbers and then we pause because something happened here. So we had some ups and some downs, but wow, something happened in 2019 with the profit went down. What happened? But we can see also that something happens in 2020 and maybe somebody gives some explanation here. What I told the client, he was a bit stressed in this case because he had to show this to the board of directors. And he said, yes, but you know, they will start asking me about the number, but we've done so many things during this year. How am I going to tell them this? So I said, listen, let's try a different approach. You can give them the charts and the data itself, just hand out. It was still in the days when people actually got together, not just online. So say, just give it away once before you start your presentation, just hand out. And then start telling about the story of 2019 and say, in the beginning of this year, 2 major clients left us. We had a problem when we asked them why. We realized, or they told us, that our technology was outdated. So we took 2 decisions. We decided, first of all, to change our portfolio of clients and to have more small, medium clients that even if some of them leave, they won't have such an impact on our income. And we needed to update our technology. We realized that our personnel, our manpower wasn't suitable. So we had to engage in very big layoffs and compensations and training. And while we did all this in order to step up from 2020, we still managed to end this year with a small profit, but ensured a very large forecast of profit for next year. So this was a whole different story. You know, instead of apologizing for having that small cube in the numbers, suddenly we have a story, a success story. And it's true, we didn't lie. We just showed it from a different perspective. Okay, so just one little thing that we are going to teach in one of our, we can do dynamic charts. People don't know them, but in Excel, dynamic charts can be done. And what's a dynamic chart? It's a chart we build once. And then every time the numbers change, the color changes. So we just designed it once, but we are doing it very easily. And this is just a teaser because we will be teaching how to do it. Okay, so Linda, now we're taking it back to you. I'll stop my share, and if anybody has any questions, please just feel free to ask. Did I stop my share? Yes, I think I did.
Any questions at all? How's the webinar going for people? Is that giving you some ideas? Are you getting some inspiration of different ways to show your data and your numbers?
Of course. Hi, Linda. Nice to meet you. I'm Samuel. Hi, Jude.
Hi.
Nice to meet you. Thanks.
Nice to be here, of course, and to see how you can do the magic with the charts. So it's amazing. I really love it. So
that's
amazing.
Great.
Thank you very much. Lot of value.
Our pleasure. Thanks for making the time to be here.
Thank you.
Excellent. Anyone else? Any questions?
Not yet, Linda, but I'm monitoring, so you can go on.
Very good.
Yeah, I'm monitoring as, we just have another 15 minutes, so.
Okay, very great. All right. Okay, well, I wanted to do just a bit of a recap. So we have just gone through and shown you that well-presented a well-crafted presentation has 3 different components. And that's the strategy, which is illustrated by these icons up at the top. Then the visual images that Jude has gone through and shown you a lot of different ways to present. And I also mentioned how you can bring in actual images to support that tone and emotion that you're wanting to create in your audience. And it also has to be designed for that the environment that you're going to present, whether you're standing and presenting it live like we are, or whether you're sending it out. All of these different delivery methods have different pros and cons. And if you are interested in having us do any of this for you, absolutely, we'd be so happy. But our purpose, our goal is to give you these tools, to show you, put these tools in your hands so that you can do it yourselves. One of the ways in which we are doing this is Jude and I have just finished working up a whole series of very short 30-minute sessions that have just one specific technique that they focus on, whether it be the strategy or how to tell a story or how to create visuals, where to find those visuals, how to work on the charts. Each one of these short little 30-minute sessions is going to have a live instructor. It's us. You're going to be on your computer. You're going to be doing it. The mics will be live. These are going to be very small groups. We're going to restrict them to only about a dozen attendees. And because they're small and easily digestible, we're calling them nuggets. So this is our nugget series. And we will be sending you the information about these upcoming sessions and when they're scheduled, one every month, and how you can register and participate in those. The focus for the whole nugget series is how to present data to non-data, what we call your peeps, non-data peeps. So we want you to be able to get in touch with us. We've provided our contact information here. Want to let you know, remind you that after this presentation, after this session, the platform is going to send you an automatic survey so that you can let the organizer know how it went. And also then we will send you an email with the link to the recording, probably in about 48 hours. And then next month, you'll get one more email from us just letting you know about this upcoming nugget series, when they are. And at that point, if you don't, we'll have the yes, no, opt-in, opt-out box. If you don't want to hear from us anymore, you just click that and we'll retire you from our list, wish you the best and not disturb you anymore. But we have a lot of information to share and we want to do it in very small, concise pieces. So here is our contact information. Please reach out to us anytime you have a presentation, you have questions, either on Excel, PowerPoint, get in touch with us, let us know. And I'd also like to take this moment to thank you. Thank you very much for attending, for making time in your evening to attend this session and find out a little bit more about presentations. Jude, over to you.
Yeah, I just want to say just a couple of words about this platform. As I said before, this is Biz Live. I think that some of our participants already know it. The survey that Linda was telling you about is anonymous. You don't have to, I mean, nobody knows. So as much as we like to get high ratings, we do want to get your ideas or your comments and see if you're interested in any others. We try to do this one in English. I wasn't sure how many people here will attend. I see that there isn't much attendance, but I am sure that once we make it more public, it might be interesting. And we will keep letting you on about our webinars in general, so you can attend whether with BizLive or on our own platforms. I do encourage you all to just write, ask us questions. Don't be shy. If it's something too big for us to answer, we will say that. So just feel free to contact us whenever. Thank you again. תודה רבה, שיהיה המשך ערב נעים. That's Linda in our language. Thank you and have a good evening. For Linda is early morning, so maybe you go back and
I'll go get
enjoy
another coffee.
and then, yes, go and have another coffee. And you can just unmute yourself and you can just turn your cameras on. Linda, can you please just stop sharing? And yeah, this way we can see people in person. And
I just wanted to say, ladies, thank you very much. It was very, very interesting. And we'll see you later. Especially you, Jude.
Thank you very much. Toda rabba, Jude. Thank you, Linda.
Toda rabba. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
So now I only remember 10% of what you said, basically.
Yes.
Approximately. Well, maybe now you remember a little bit more, but when we will see each other and when I'll ask you again in about a week, that's about all you're going to remember, unfortunately. But we hope that you will remember the things we wanted you to remember.
Yeah, it's a nice craft, let's say, to take numbers and to visualize it. So it's a craft. Yes. So I really appreciate this craft. Thank you very much.
Samuel here is he's not saying so much, but he's such a brilliant guy.
Oh.
Yes, I'm sorry, but he is. And so if you want to say a few words about yourself, Samuel, because you'll do it better than I do.
Let's say that I take young people that have startups, you know, Israeli, it's the startup nation, and I help them to get investments, let's say. Excellent. And a presentation, it's a way to tell the story.
Exactly. Awesome. Well, continued good success with that through to not just the end of this year, but especially into next year.
Thank you very much. I'm sure that 2021 will be better.
Yes.
Oh, yes, we are.
Thank you very much. So see you later soon. Thank you very much for all the value. Thank you.